management consulting absolutely sucks, and I've got data here that proves it. So before we go any further, I'm going to break down the numbers anywhere from undergrad to masters and how much you get paid at the biggest firms in the world. McKinsey, 112,000 to 192,000. You got Deloitte anywhere from 90,000 to 175,000. Bain & Company, 112,000 to 182,000. Accenture, which is arguably the most AI forward of all the big consulting firms, anywhere from 105,000 to 175,000. You've then got boutique firms like Palm and Stacks, anywhere from 75,000 to $150,000. Okay? So when I tell you that management consulting sucks, and you should do what I'm about to tell you in this video instead, I now have given you the numbers to back that up, okay? Because with management consulting, you are going to get burdened with the debt of an MBA, PhD, all that stuff, okay? You are also not going to have skills like doing lead generation like most consultants struggle with after leaving, because the average tenure is 2 years. So if you aren't already doing your MBA, then this is the path forward. And if you are, I would highly recommend you start doing this anyway, because you're going to make way more money, okay? So what I am talking about today in this video is something with the acronym AIC, okay? So rather than management consulting, we're actually going to be doing AI consulting, okay? So inside of these firms, it's a lot of strategy, different levels of business, different size companies, a lot of private equity, stuff like that. What we're doing is AI consulting instead. So these old firms move very slowly and they aren't adapting fast enough, especially with the young talent out there, to start actually evolving these companies, these traditional businesses, to AI first businesses. And that is actually what we are going to be doing as AI consultants, okay? So right now, we have 1,000,001 companies like this that want to transition to being AI companies, and they just don't know how to get there. So I'm going to show you in this video how we're going to do that for these companies, because this is a substantially bigger opportunity than making anywhere from, what was it, 75,000 to the maximum was 192,000 at the biggest firms in the world. AI consulting is actually very simple, and it ultimately follows the same principles as management consulting or any type of consulting in the whole world. So you diagnose the business, you're going to identify the bottlenecks, the workflows, the inefficiencies within it. You're then going to map them out so it's easy for everyone to see and understand. You are then going to rank these opportunities, and then you are going to attach an ROI to these opportunities, right? And then the final step is you actually build a roadmap. So as you can tell, if you have done any type of consulting previously, or if you haven't, this is pretty much the exact same roadmap that every single consulting firm in the world follows, because it starts with, hey, I need to know about this business specifically. I need to identify their bottlenecks, their hurdles. I need to just understand it. I then map out all of their workflows, everything. I then rank the things that I've identified on whether they're easy to implement or hard to implement and the value to the business. I then attach an ROI to those opportunities. I then build out the roadmap for implementing those solutions and give it to them, right? So the final output of being a consultant is actually not very exciting. It's a presentation / a deck. We come in, do all this stuff, and then we basically give them a fancy report at the end with all of this stuff laid out. It tends to be anywhere from about 10 pages to 25 pages, okay? So it's really simple. And this is what we're going to be doing for these traditional companies. And I'm going to tell you how you can go about and get your first clients, right? Some more of the intricacies to each of these processes. So let's take a second to understand the market right now, okay? Because we are in a very interesting time. So like I touched on previously, we have a ton of businesses. So there's over 100 million companies in the world. In the US, there's about 33 to 36 million active businesses. In the UK, there's anywhere from 6 to 10 million businesses. So even if we just took those two countries, there's, give or take between 45 and 50 million active companies. And the vast majority of those are traditional businesses, so SMBs. So anywhere from, I think technically an SMB is under, I think it's 250 employees. Seems kind of crazy. That's quite big, right? And right now they see AI going on. So they want to become AI first, but they just don't know where it fits. Something you will commonly hear is like, hey, I hear all this stuff going on, I just don't know where it fits for me. What we do is we position ourselves in this market as the bridge, right? So we bridge this gap. And what we do is we show them where AI can solve their workflows. And we understand their business and their workflows by asking a series of questions through interviews. We interview stakeholders and employees, and we understand from start to finish, from decision, so these guys make the main decision, all the way to the action getting completed or not completed, which is key. We want to understand exactly what that flow looks like. Then they've told us all this information, we map it out. And a map is really as simple as a mind map. You've probably made a million of them, where we're just going to map out the processes like this. And we go, these are all the steps they take in their current business. And then what we're looking to do is we go, hey, right now you're doing X, Y, Z, A, B, C to get to, or point 1 to point 10. Actually, Mr. Prospect, these can now be done by AI. These are no longer needed to be done manually. A prime example of this was an audit I did where the sales team was doing 2 hours of manual prospecting a day. They had 10 SDRs. That's 20 hours a day of manual prospecting. So they were going to LinkedIn and verifying the leads and then trying to enrich the data, then checking the CRM. That could all now be done by AI. Literally the whole thing end to end. What we did is we identified that solution and then we mapped it out. So on like an opportunity matrix. So this is basically how long does it take to achieve and what's the value. So if this is time and then this is value. So if it's short on time and say high on value, you would be up here, which would be a quick win, right? So it doesn't take long to do, but it's really valuable to the business. And then if this was long on time but still valuable, this would be at what we would deem a big swing. So in this case of the SDR example I just gave you, this is definitely a quick win. It's not that complicated to put in a lead generation and enrichment system, right? So what we will then do is we then tie down this process and the ROI associated to it, okay? So the way we do that is we say you've got 10 SDRs and you're paying them, let's say, it makes no difference, 100K a year, right? And they're each wasting, 10 hours a week on this, right? So then what we do is we'd say, okay, you've got 100K, divide that by the number of weeks and the number of hours, you get a certain hourly rate from that. You would then multiply your hourly times the number of staff, and that is how much it's costing the company. So that is the cost to them. We then establish how much we think we will charge to deliver this solution. So we then figure that out here. And basically, this is the ROI associated. So if we just give a very simple example here, saying, let's say it's costing them, to be fair, let's say it's $2,500 a week, and our implementation is going to cost $15,000. In a matter of a number of basically short weeks, under a few months, this has already paid for this. And now they're getting all of that time back. So the reps now are just focused on closing and they're not focused on doing the lead generation side because that's handled. And within 6 weeks, this would have paid for itself. Now there might be some recurring maintenance and stuff like that, but essentially within 6 weeks, that company's got its money back. In big companies, if they can get their investment back within 12 months, that is deemed a huge success because everything after the first year, they are now in profit, okay? Now, when you find stuff in the sales and lead generation departments, which is genuinely one of the biggest areas of improvement, you can actually reallocate these number of hours to revenue generating activities. So we were saying in that example, they wasted 2 hours on lead gen, yeah? Well, let's say, hypothetically, it takes them on average 2 hours to close a deal. And let's say that deal is just, again, these random numbers worth $2,000. So that 2 hours of lead gen, right, now would equate to one new deal, which would equal an extra $2,000 to keep this example simple. So let's say we charge them $15,000. They're saving $2,500 a week anyway. Then for all those hours we're saving, these reps could actually all close an additional deal, which would equate to $2,000. So, if this scenario, right, all these numbers are real, what we're basically saying is within 1 week, this company would actually be able to recoup the investment for the implementation. And this is what a lot of people get wrong when it comes to AI consulting is there's a lot of undercharging. So whether you are or aren't familiar with this space at all, but a lot of people got big into the AI automation side specifically and don't actually understand how businesses function. And as consultants, that's what we focus on is actual businesses and business problems. Well, then we look at how our implementations directly impact the business and the ROI for that company in its entirety, okay? So this is essentially take business from here to start being AI first through a series of interviews, series of mapping. We map out our opportunity, we rank it, we then attach an ROI to it. Then we deliver this all in a nice little bundle and a nice little presentation. Now, the reality is AI audits, and this is why I wanted to tie it into the management consulting at the very start from a basically earnings perspective. So I'm going to keep this on the very low end. An AI audit of a small company will be anywhere from 5,000 all the way up to say 50,000. How do you determine that price? How do you know how much to charge? It's a great question. Simple. Charge $500 per interview. Let's take, for example, the reason we do it this way is if you have a call center and you've got like a director, a few managers, and then you've got 50 call center staff, all 50 staff are doing the same thing. So you don't need to interview all of them. You just interview one of them. So it's essentially you'd have like, 4 interviews in that case, charge $2,000 for that audit, right? Because it's going to be a lot faster to do. But if you've got a big company, so the biggest audit we've done is about like 75 to 80,000 range. And that was with an engineering company in the UK. And that was just under 200 people. So they really range massively, but that one also took 8 weeks to do, when these audits take 2 weeks. If we bring this back down to the management consulting, where we saw anywhere from 75,000 all the way up to, I think at the top was maybe Deloitte, where if you had an MBA or a PhD, it was 182,000. Plus there was some bonuses. I think the bonuses were around 20K, something like that, right? Even if we rounded this all up and said 230K, that would be the top of the top of the top of all those firms from that undergrad to PhD and master's level. Well, let's break it down from an audit perspective. Let's say on the low end, you're doing 5K to 10K an audit. Let's do 10K. So you need to do 23 audits a year. So that would equate to 2 per month. Now, the reality is that's not actually how things would look, because when you do an audit, as we said, we identify the opportunities. They want these opportunities implemented. Now, if you don't want to do it, that's absolutely fine. There's plenty of people out there we can hire to do it, which is exactly how I started. At the worst end, you're saying you got to do 23 audits a year, which would equate to making the top end at the top consultant firm or one of them in the world. The reality is, if you've got a 10K audit, I would say as a bare minimum, you're going to get at least 10K in implementation. I think that's extremely low. I'd say it's much closer to 20, but for the sake of argument, I'm going to say you got 20K total LTV per client. And when I say it's low, it's very low. We've got people who I've helped do this, like Alex did a free audit, got her 40K implementation deal as the first section. We've got Zahor, who also did a free audit, and it's a 65K implementation plus then goes up to 125K. Her paid audit was $5,000, is going to be nearly 700,000 implementation. Like the implementation is where there is huge money. It's just the margins are lower because you got to have a development team. Okay. So this is like insanely low. This would be like you doing it for an HVAC company. But for that, you've got to do 12. If you did 12 a year, if you did 12 audits and got the implementation. So if you bake in some margin for error, let's say you do 15 audits a year plus the implementations, you are already going to be making more than anybody at these management consulting firms, unless they are some type of partner or they've been there a hell of a long time. This is by far and away the best opportunity right now for non-technical people. And if you are a consultant, you would like business problems, or you're any of these people, you don't have to be a consultant at all. This is the best opportunity for non-technical people to actually go and help these businesses transform and for you to get paid an obnoxious amount of money doing it. I personally went, so I will tell you my numbers. In my first few months, these were my actual numbers from doing this. My first month, I did 13K. My second month, I did 18K. And my third month, I did 76K. Real numbers from 2025 when I started my AI consulting firm. That's how fast it grew. No one is offering this. Every business wants it. Everyone who I've taught how to do this, the lead generation and getting this in front of owners and getting interest is the easiest thing in the entire world. I hope you enjoyed this video. Drop a subscribe, drop a like, and plenty of other content on this channel. And I will see you in the next one.